Journalist Samuel Geddes joins us now from Melbourne to offer us more insight on that story. Welcome to the program. Well, the UK plan to deport these asylum seekers to a country thousands of miles away is receiving across the board criticism from church leaders to the UN Refugee Agency and rights groups. Why is the government insisting on going ahead with this plan then?
Well, what the British government is attempting to do is essentially more or less the same thing that successive governments in Australia have been doing for more than 20 years now, which is to create a sense of xenophobically fueled moral panic about asylum seekers, refugees, people trafficking, in order to essentially turn displays of cruelty against asylum seekers into an election-winning strategy. And speaking has proven to be an incredibly effective electoral tactic. Even those that may not be convinced by the pure cruelty of what's being proposed, other people can be won over by the argument that the British government, as well as the Australian government, has continuously made, that in order to deter people from turning to people smugglers, interning them in essentially concentration camps on another continent is actually the moral thing to do. So by framing it in that way, they are setting this up as a long-term electoral strategy that I would imagine the objective would be to get even the opposition Labour Party to eventually go along with, which is exactly what has happened over the years in Australia.
Well, these people are risking their lives to flee prosecution and war and to get to a safer place. Tell us about the questions regarding the legality of this move and also worries about the fate of these asylum seekers once they get to Rwanda. There's a lot of criticism that the country is not safe for migrants because of human rights abuses there.
In terms of the legality, I mean, the body of international law is very clear that any country in which refugees arrive and in which they claim asylum is required to give it to them. The British government has really been giving conflicting messaging regarding its plan to deport refugees to Rwanda, in that, on the one hand, they want it to be a deterrent that will cause refugees to think again or to not take up the services of people smugglers in the future. On the other hand, it wants to try and present Rwanda as a viable alternative place of settlement for these refugees. So these two attempted justifications are obviously in conflict with one another. Either sending people to Rwanda is a deterrent, or it is a viable place to settle instead of the UK. It really cannot be both.
All right, thanks a lot, journalist Samuel Geddes joining us from Melbourne.